There is a part of you that you never wanted to know, a silent presence that inhabits every thought you reject, every impulse you condemn, every version of yourself you swear you'll never be. Carl Jung called it the shadow, and the truth about it is far more disturbing than you imagine. The more you deny it, the more power it has over your life. Think about the moments when you reacted disproportionately to something seemingly insignificant. That inexplicable anger, that jealousy you swore you didn't feel, that envy you disguised as indifference. You probably wondered where these emotions came from, as if they were intruders in your carefully constructed personality. Jung's answer is simple and terrifying. They're not intruders, they are you. The version of you that you buried alive because it didn't fit the image you wanted to project to the world. Your shadow is not a character flaw. It's a dead file of everything you needed to deny in order to be accepted, loved, respected. And that file is growing, strengthening, waiting for the perfect moment to explode. Society teaches us from childhood that we must be good, polite, rational, controlled. They tell us not to scream, not to cry in public, not to feel anger, not to be selfish, not to desire what we shouldn't. And so we spend decades building a persona, a social mask that hides everything we consider unacceptable. Jung realized that this process of repression doesn't eliminate the denied aspects of our psyche. It just pushes them into the depths of the unconscious, where they transform into the shadow. And here's the first great truth that few have the courage to face. Your shadow contains not only your flaws, but also your unrealized potentials, your suffocated talents, your repressed creativity. You didn't just bury monsters, you also buried treasures. Imagine your psyche as a house. The persona is the living room, clean, organized, presentable. It's where you receive others, where you display your achievements and virtues. But every house has a basement, and that's where you throw everything you don't want anyone to see. Over time, that basement gets crowded, dark, chaotic. You lock the door and pretend it doesn't exist. But Jung warned us, what you lock in the basement eventually finds a way to climb the stairs. This happens through projections, when you see in others exactly what you can't see in yourself. That person who deeply irritates you, they're probably mirroring an aspect of your own shadow. That behavior you harshly judge in others, it's often something you've repressed in yourself with even more violence. Projection is the shadow's favorite defense mechanism. It's easier to point the finger outward than to look inward. It's more comfortable to believe the problem is in others than to recognize that we carry the same tendencies we condemn. Jung observed that the most moralistic people, those who preach virtues with the greatest fervor, often hide the most intense shadows. It's not conscious hypocrisy, it's a psychological compensation mechanism. The more you deny something in yourself, the more you need to condemn it in others to maintain the illusion that you're free from it. Think of the great religious or moral figures who fall into scandals involving exactly the behaviors they most condemned. They weren't simply lying, they were fighting against a shadow that grew so much in the darkness that it eventually dominated them. And here we come to a crucial question. If we all have a shadow, if we all carry this dark and denied side, why do some people seem more integrated, more authentic, more at peace with themselves, while others live in constant internal conflict? The difference lies in something Jung called shadow integration. The wisest people aren't those who eliminated their dark sides. They're those who had the courage to look at them, recognize them, and consciously integrate them. There's an abysmal difference between repressing anger and transforming anger into assertive strength, between denying ambition and channeling it toward meaningful purposes, between hiding sensuality and expressing it in healthy and creative ways. Integration doesn't mean releasing all impulses without filter. It means bringing them to consciousness so you can choose what to do with them, instead of being controlled by them unconsciously. Have you ever stopped to think about how many important decisions in your life were influenced not by what you consciously desire, but by what your shadow unconsciously seeks? that toxic relationship you repeated several times with different people. It could be your shadow seeking validation for aspects of yourself you don't accept, that career you chose to please others instead of following your true passion. It could be your shadow of rebellion and authenticity trying to emerge in distorted ways through sabotage and chronic dissatisfaction. Jung realized that neurosis, that persistent and inexplicable psychological suffering, is often the shadow's cry asking to be seen, heard, integrated. Think about your automatic reactions, those moments when you act in a certain way and then wonder why you did it. These are the moments when your shadow takes control. An innocent comment makes you furious. Someone else's achievement awakens a corrosive envy. A constructive criticism paralyzes you with disproportionate shame. These aren't simply passing emotions. They're windows into unintegrated aspects of your psyche. And the more you ignore them, the more power they gain. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can succeed for a while, but eventually your arms get tired and it explodes to the surface with multiplied force. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what comes next, because we're only scratching the surface of something much deeper. If you want to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to the channel, because the most transformative insights are still to come. Jung didn't discover the shadow by reading books or theorizing in his academic ivory tower. He found it by confronting his own darkness. After his break with Freud, Jung went through a period of intense psychological torment that he called confrontation with the unconscious. He had disturbing visions, apocalyptic dreams, experiences that brought him to the brink of what he himself feared was madness. But instead of running away or medicating himself to silence these experiences, he did something radical. He embraced them, dialogued with them, meticulously recorded them in what would become known as the Red Book. It was by diving into his own shadow that Jung developed the theories that would transform modern psychology. He discovered in practice what he would later teach as a concept. The encounter with the shadow is terrifying, but it's also the portal to individuation, to truly becoming who you are. There's a story that perfectly illustrates this concept. Imagine a man who prides himself on being kind, patient, always willing to help. He sees himself as someone good, incapable of malice. One day someone deeply betrays him, and for the first time in his life, he feels visceral hatred, a genuine desire for revenge. This terrifies him because it doesn't fit his self-image. He has three options. First, completely repress these feelings, pretend they don't exist, keep his nice guy persona intact. Result, the repressed anger manifests in indirect ways, perhaps through psychosomatic illnesses, passive-aggressive behavior, or depression. Second option, act impulsively on the anger, seek revenge, let the shadow take complete control. Result, he destroys relationships, loses himself, becomes what he always feared. Third option, the Jungian way. Acknowledge the anger, feel its intensity, understand that it's part of him as much as kindness, and then consciously decide how to deal with the situation without repressing or being dominated by the feeling. Result, he integrates this shadow aspect, becoming more complete, more authentic, capable of both kindness and firmness when necessary. This third option requires something our culture generally doesn't teach: psychological courage. The courage to look at yourself without judgment, to recognize that you're capable of both light and darkness, both love and hate, both generosity and selfishness. Jung said something profound: "I'd rather be whole than good." He realized that the pursuit of moral perfection is an ego trap, an attempt to keep the persona polished while the shadow rots in the basement. True psychological maturity doesn't come from eliminating your flaws, but from consciously integrating them into a broader and more authentic personality. But there's an even deeper secret that few know, something Jung discovered that can completely change your relationship with your own shadow. The shadow doesn't contain only what is negative. This is the great misconception. When you repress aspects of yourself to fit social or family expectations, you don't just bury anger, envy, selfishness, or cruelty. You also bury wild creativity, intense passion, personal power, sensuality, spontaneity, the ability to say no, legitimate ambition, self-confidence. Jung called this the golden shadow, the positive aspects that were denied because they were threatening in some way. Think of a child naturally talented in art, but raised in a family that only values practical and lucrative careers. This child learns to be ashamed of their creativity, to hide it, to see it as frivolous or useless. The artistic talent goes into the shadow, not because it's bad, but because it wasn't accepted. Decades later, this person may feel an inexplicable emptiness, a sense that something essential is missing, without realizing they buried their greatest potential alive. Have you ever met someone who instantly fascinates you, who seems to have qualities you intensely admire? This can also be shadow projection, but of the golden shadow. You're seeing in this person your own aspects that were denied and undeveloped. Intense admiration can be a sign that you need to recover and integrate these talents or qualities in yourself, instead of just projecting them onto others. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, requires not only confronting what you fear in yourself, but also rescuing what you lost, the gold buried along with the trash in the basement of the psyche. And here's the most liberating truth of all. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's the guardian of your wholeness, the part of you that refuses to be erased, that fights for your psychological integrity even when you consciously try to fragment it. Every irrational emotional outburst, every inexplicable attraction, every exaggerated reaction is an invitation. The shadow is knocking on the door of consciousness saying, "Look at me, recognize me, integrate me. Stop pretending I don't exist." The more you respond to this invitation with curiosity instead of fear, with compassion instead of judgment, the more whole you become. And a whole person is much more powerful, authentic and free than a good person who lives imprisoned in an artificial image of perfection. Jung left us a map for this journey, but each person needs to walk on their own. No one can integrate your shadow for you. No one can face your internal demons in your place. But when you finally have the courage to go down to the basement, turn on the lights, and see what's really there, something magical happens. You discover that the monsters you feared so much are, in fact, rejected parts of yourself asking to come home. And when you welcome them, when you integrate anger as strength, envy as legitimate aspiration, fear as cautious wisdom, sensuality as vitality, you don't become a worse person. You become more real, more complete, more alive. Jung's dark truth about your shadow isn't that you have a dark side. It's that you've spent your entire life running from your own wholeness, sacrificing your authenticity on the altar of social acceptance. And the price of this escape is high. A life lived halfway, an impoverished personality, an unrealized potential. But the good news is that it's not too late. Your shadow is still there, patiently waiting for you to have the courage to look at it. And when you finally do, you'll discover that the monster in the basement was you all along, waiting to be freed, waiting to be understood, waiting to be integrated into the masterpiece that is your complete life. If this journey touched something deep in you, if these words resonated with truths you already intuited but couldn't name, don't let this energy dissipate. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we have the courage to recognize our complete humanity and invite others to do the same. Your shadow is waiting. The question is, are you ready to meet it?